Welcome into the Bear Squad Show. I'm Joe George, post-game host, and Ben Johnson said you can't build off anything because the season starts over today. We will do the same thing and flip the page to 2026.
I'm Adam Sager. We'll look ahead to the upcoming free agents for the Bears. Who should they keep? Who should they let walk?
And I'm Lauren Cox from Locked On Bears, and already the brain drain is starting to creep out with Eric Bieniemy gone and other assistants interviewing elsewhere.
Bear down, Chicago. It's the Bears Squad. Everything Chicago Bears, every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from the Windy City. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. From Soldier Field to the next great chapter, the Bears Squad Show starts now.
Welcome into the Bears Squad Show here on the Locked On Bears YouTube and audio channels. Joe George, Adam Sager, and Lauren Cox here with you for the next hour as these squad shows will continue throughout the entire offseason. And, well, guys, we're here. It's the offseason. We talked about the last game on Tuesday, but today we'll flip the page to 2026. We'll talk about Ben Johnson being named a finalist for Coach of the Year. Our first look at free agents for the Bears of who they might want to keep, who they might want to let walk. A lot of safety discussion will be had this offseason with all of them being free agents. Let's talk about Bears coaches getting poached. And there's a lot of coaching news in the NFC North that will impact the Bears. So we'll hit on that as well on the show today. But Lauren, we'll start with you on this one. I think it's no surprise that Ben Johnson was named an AP Coach of the Year finalist. He was joined by Liam Cohen, Mike McDonald, Kyle Shanahan, and Mike Vrabel. So it's a really good group of coaches that deserve it. But it's really nice to see Ben Johnson, the Bears head coach, on that list.
Yeah, I mean, it's a validation of the turnaround he's been able to do for this team, right? And to see the way that they've won these games, I think is part of it too. I mean, some of this ends up being, not just like who is, first of all, like how you measure who is the best coach, right? But who has the best story, who has the most like crazy turnaround path. And so like for all the fourth quarter comebacks and wins, like I think that boosts Ben Johnson's resume even a little bit more than it would have been if they had just, won some of those games a little bit more comfortably, just in terms of like, wow, he's been able to get this team to rally in the biggest, most clutch moments and get Caleb Williams turned around. Like, I don't think he's going to win the actual award, but, because I think any of those other four guys have a pretty strong argument head to head with him. But hey, it's a good recognition to say he's right in that same category as some of those other impressive names.
Yeah, and then you just look at it. I mean, first year, he's one of three guys that are with their team for the first year with Mike Vrabel and Liam Cohen. But it's good to see that it seems like the Bears made the right selection for the head coach. We've seen what they did this year, making it to the divisional round of the playoffs, having a chance to win that game in overtime. So really nice to see Ben Johnson up there. But I'm with Lauren that I don't think he'll win it, but he will win one in his time in Chicago.
I agree. I think he'll win one too. And you guys said it. Like, it's good to have him there. He will win one. I agree with that too, Adam. If you had an AP vote, I honestly, because the three coaches that are all new are kind of the same, I want to give credit to Kyle Shanahan. I know Mike McDonald, like, you're the one seed, you're the Seahawks. I feel like a lot of times, like, that's where it goes to, but it's hard for me to ignore, like, all the injuries the 49ers had this season. And they just kept winning games. They won with backup quarterbacks. They won with their starting quarterback. Like, they're just missing so many guys this year. It's hard for me not to say Kyle Shanahan deserves it this year. And again, they're all deserving. So I think I would vote Shanahan. Lauren, if you had a vote in this, who would you send your vote towards?
Yeah, I think Shanahan runs into the issue that I fear Ben Johnson might too, of like when your team's already good in recent years and they're then good again, but it's like, the Coach of the Year award tends to reward the big turnarounds, right? And you can only turn around if you're bad. So, I mean, I know Shanahan had a down year there, but I don't like Shanahan's odds, even though I think in terms of coaching, he probably had to overcome the most in terms of, everything, all the obstacles put in his way. But it's tough when they finished technically, I think, third in their division there. I find myself feeling like, Vrabel or Cohen are kind of the two that I'm a little bit more torn between, just in terms of the success that they've had in the turnaround that's taken for them. Between those two, I don't know. I guess I start to lean Liam Cohen just because it feels like Jacksonville was such like an organizational dumpster fire that had to dig out, as opposed to like New England was bad with Gerard Mayo and everything, but like there's a stability with ownership and leadership in that organization that you kind of feel like, well, you just had to get a smart coach in there and maybe wouldn't be too hard. I mean, it would be hard to do this good, but it wouldn't be too hard to at least get them back on the track. But Jacksonville was like, man, they were desperate for something to kind of figure something out, and they certainly got it and took it to the next level.
Yeah, I look at it, and I would definitely lean Liam Cohen too as well. He was finally the person that was able to bring the Trevor Lawrence out that we all expected to see in his first several years in the NFL. If I were going for another guy, I'd say Mike McDonald. You get the 1 seed in arguably the best division in football. And I just look at New England and Mike Vrabel, great job. Drake May takes that next step, but I look at their schedule and all the teams they beat, being sub 500 for the most part. So I look at Liam Cohen with the turnaround, getting Trevor Lawrence to do what he did this year, and then Mike McDonald a close second is how I'd finish it.
Yeah, as you were saying that, Lauren, I was like, I wonder if Riders will give him credit for getting Trent Baalke fired as a positive, being like, hey, like it wasn't just that he got the job. It's that he said, I'm not taking the job unless you get rid of this terrible GM.
Yeah.
And then I'll take it and I'll come turn around this franchise in just 1 season. The Ben Johnson, Ryan Poles, they had their end of the year press conferences as they always do. And look, a lot of times, I don't know how you guys feel, like it's just coach speak, generalization, but maybe I'm just like full in the Bears Kool-Aid right now. But when I heard Ben Johnson talk about, 2025 doesn't matter. There's nothing to build off this. We're starting over as all the other 32 teams are. I was just like, yeah, like that's our guy. Like I love that message, Lauren, from the head coach of the Bears, that like, yes, this season was awesome, but in the end, like it doesn't really matter, and we're on to the next year.
Yeah, it gives off such a lack of ego of in the process of just like, hey, like we all got to start back from square one. Like this isn't, you don't get to carry those 12, including the playoffs wins, with you into 2026. Like you're not going to be NFC North champions anymore when week 1 comes around. So you can't act like and pretend and just assume that you're going to keep being the same exact things you are. And I loved how in that same breath he talked about how, when we restart and go back to square one, that includes me too. Like I got things I need to shore up as a coach. He could easily be someone who feels like, well, I'm the architect of this offense. I'm the genius offensive coordinator, play caller here, who I'm a master of this, and everyone else is just trying to learn and get back up to my level. So I'm just going to hand down my wisdom. But for him to kind of bring himself, I don't say bring himself down to their level, but bring himself onto the same level as them and say, hey, you guys got to work hard to get better. I also have to work hard to get better. Like we're all in this effort together, so that when you're grinding, I'm also grinding through the same process. And it just feels like such a really strong process that you hope can continue to lead positive results.
Yeah, and I mean when he says, you can't really build off 2025, I think that's just like you said, telling everybody you got to be better next year. We weren't good enough. We didn't win the Super Bowl, so we didn't finish where we wanted to finish. So yeah, you got to make yourselves better. But in reality, we all know, coming off this season, doing what you did, it did start everybody in the right direction. Now, yeah, you heard Caleb say, got to clean up his footwork, his accuracy. Those are his point of emphasis this season. Ben Johnson, maybe the play calling, just turning it, a little bit more to help Caleb in that way. So you definitely, you can't take any wins to 2026. You can't, you don't automatically make the playoffs because of what you did in 2025. Well, you can definitely build off the success and what you do well, and then take a look at it and see what you don't or didn't do well enough to, win this Rams game and move on and hopefully win a Super Bowl. That's where you focus and you try and make what you do bad better. And then if everything else continues to grow, you become a much better football team.
Yeah, I think it kind of gives us a good segue into our first, just like it'll change over the offseason as free agency happens, the draft happens, like where the Bears need to improve either positionally on their roster within the game, like you're just mentioning there, Adam, with Caleb. Like, so let's start looking through some of our ideas of where the Bears need to improve the most into 2026. So, Adam, I'll start with you here. What's the first thing that comes to mind where it's like, this is where the Bears have to be better next season?
I think when I spoke on all our post-game shows, I bet you I was 100% saying the pass rush is not good enough. And I think that's first and foremost the biggest glaring. If there's a sign that's blinking, it's that this team needs a pass rusher opposite Montez Sweat, somebody that is a true pass rusher, where Montez is more of a run stuffing D end that can get after the quarterback a little bit. You need that guy that's going to push 12, 13, 14, 15 sacks and can really make an offense game plan for you, which will allow hopefully Gervon Dexter to take another step, Montez Sweat to be that much better. So pass rush, if it's through the draft, if it's through free agency, if it's through trade, there's different avenues they can go, but pass rush is the number one thing to me that sticks out they got to improve.
Yeah, in terms of like from what they had this year to what you want to have next year, I agree it's got to be pass rush. But I think Ryan Poles and company go into this offseason saying number one, like, priority that they have to address first is the safety position, where all four of the guys you have under contract right now. I realize I'm sort of taking the words and twisting them a little bit here. Like, yes, you're right that pass rush was the bigger weakness this past season. But step one is who's going to play either safety spot this offseason? Who's going to be the backups? Like, this defense actually has kind of a sneaky amount of free agents, not so much in the starting lineup besides the safeties, but like the vast majority of the backups across all the other positions. I mean, you have about 6 defensive linemen under contract for next season. You have like 3 or 4 linebackers, and you got a couple of cornerbacks, and that's about it. Like, they're going to have to rebuild a lot of the depth of this defense, or choose to resign, I suppose. But they got to figure out, first of all, like, which safety they're going to keep, or if they're going to keep both. I mean, it certainly sounds like from what Ryan Poles said that there's one they would prefer to keep over the other. But I within that theme, I think Dennis Allen is going to want to make some changes just to get more of his guys in the building, as opposed to, he inherited a group of defensive players. He used the season to try and figure out who kind of fits what he wants to do and who maybe doesn't. And now he's got the time to say, all right, now I wouldn't surprise me if they get rid of a couple guys that we either might not be expecting, or certainly guys who aren't set to be free agents.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. It feels like last offseason, it was, get Ben Johnson, you go into the draft and come out of the draft with a tight end, a running back, a wide receiver, a left tackle. Like, you really focused on the offense. And then now, as you mentioned, Lauren, with all these free agents that you have that we'll go through in a little bit, but like now it feels like the opportunity to, okay, Dennis Allen, we think is going to be here for the foreseeable future. Getting that next head coaching job, as we're seeing in this cycle, is challenging for defensive coaches. Like, yes, Robert Saleh lands in Tennessee, but like a lot of these defensive coaches, like once you fail, they don't get it the second look that offensive guys get. So it feels like Dennis Allen like has a good chance to be here for a long time, which is a very positive thing for the Bears. But now it's their opportunity to really go in and say, okay, who fits his scheme, as you were saying, Lauren, like, and going in and adding to this defense. So I think that's, pass rush, all those questions, safety, it's crazy. Like, I don't know, Lauren, do you feel any type of way about Ryan Poles' roster construction, that all of a sudden now you're looking and you're like, oh, there's no safeties on the roster at the moment going into the next season?
I mean, I think it was a risk they knew all along, but felt like, you can't do everything every offseason and fix everything all at once, right? Like, it wasn't supposed to be this way, but Jaquan Brisker had 3 straight years of concussions. Like, I think if he's someone who had been healthy over that span, I think they would be more likely to have already given him a contract extension, kind of like Kyler Gordon, right? Like and Jalen Johnson to some extent. Like, some of these injured guys they want to wait for, and if they're not injured, they'll give them the extension and they like them while they're young. So it wasn't his fault that Brisker was injured over and over again. And same thing kind of with Byard. Like, he's an older player who's been good, but he's not somebody that you've wanted to lock up to like a super long-term deal, because how many years does he have left of high-level safety play? He's 32 right now. I'm sure he's got another 1 or maybe 2, but it's kind of tricky to play that game. You don't want to lock yourself into too many years and then have an old guy who's expensive and hard to get rid of down the stretch, like a Grady Jarrett, for example. So I don't fault him too much for the contract, timing of all that, because I think it has paid off that he got good safety play this season, and you still have the rights to re-sign both of them if you wanted to. Maybe Brisker is going to cost you more now if you do want to re-sign him than he would have, and Byard, they're both going to cost you more now than they might have before, but you also didn't want to lock in either one before you were certain that they were guys that you really liked. So I'm not panicking about that swap, and I think that the flexibility he created himself there, if anything, I think is more valuable than the stability he would have had by locking them down.
Yeah, I 100% agree with what Lauren just said. Neither guy showed you in 2024 that they were going to, come out and be, especially Kevin Byard, be an all-pro type safety. this season, leading the league in interceptions and doing what he did defensively. So it'll be interesting to see how Ryan Poles views both guys in terms of what's he willing to offer Kevin Byard, because as Lauren said, he clearly seems to favor one over the other. But, is he willing to go 3 years for Kevin Byard? I mean, I know as a Bears fan, I hope not. I wouldn't lock him into 3. Now, if it's 2 at a decent price, yeah, I can see that. But it's just, how does he feel about these guys? And does maybe like a CJ Gardner-Johnson help that with what they saw from him since signing him and him being around Dennis Allen for other teams? Does that allow you to maybe bring him back on another 1-year deal and feel comfortable? Okay, we're going to let one of the 2 walk, re-sign the other, and we'll look in the draft maybe in the 2nd or 3rd round for a safety that we think can maybe start right away or start, halfway through the season, with Gardner-Johnson being valuable depth.
It reminded me just briefly of, I don't remember when Ben Johnson said it was sometime after the Lions game, between the Lions game and now, where he was raving about, Kirby Joseph and the other Lions safety and how big of an impact it was, Brian Branch, that they were both out. And he's like, he was just raving about how important it is to have great safeties, and not just one, but have 2 really good safeties. So I think he's told us along the way that that's a position I would expect them to prioritize, and not just, go into the draft hoping to get a 2nd or 3rd round pick. It feels to me like something that they're going to want to secure and feel like, Byard's locked in, and maybe it's a new free agent, or maybe it's a trade, or I guess, a first round pick could be a possibility. But I just wonder if we see them make that position a particular priority to say, we want to have 2 safeties we really like, and say this is like leaders of the defense type of a move.
Yeah, I mean, I think back to last year's draft, and I think he got all pro, or he got all rookie from one of the voters already, like Xavier McKinney. It was a guy like I was looking at like last year. I was just like, okay, like you need safety help, and how they handle that position is fascinating. That's a great pull, Lauren, about like what he was talking about that after the Lions game, because it is important. And like we saw the difference just from 24 to 25. You mentioned Adam with Byard and how different this back end of the secondary looked with having him at this level versus the year before. So it's a big question. And there's other things that we can get to, and we'll get to that on the other side of just what else are we looking for in 2026. And one of them is going to be Caleb Williams. And where does he need to improve the most? We'll hit on that and more next year on the Bears Squad Show. Today's episode of the Bears Squad Show is brought to you by Robinhood. What if sports were traded like markets? Now you can put your sports IQ to work in real time. With Robinhood prediction markets, it's not you against the house, it's you participating in a live market. You can buy or sell your positions live all game long. Use your sports knowledge in the moments that matter. Robinhood prediction markets changes the game. It's people moving the action. So when momentum shifts, you can move with it. I always knew the game, but never had a dynamic way to apply that knowledge. And now I can actually take part live in a market powered by people. You're no longer just a spectator. Play by play, you decide. Trade every play with Robinhood. Now available across the U.S. Download the Robinhood app now to begin. Futures and cleared swaps trading involves significant risk and is not appropriate for everyone. Event contracts are offered by Robinhood Derivatives, LLC, a registered futures commission, merchant, and swap firm. And today's show is also brought to you by Gametime. The NFL season is in full swing, and there's nothing like being at the game. The crowd noise, the energy, and cheering alongside other fans. Watching at home is great, but being in the stadium hits different. The frustrating part has always been getting tickets, waiting in queues, dealing with logins, and watching prices change right at checkout. And that's why the Gametime app gives the advantage back to fans. It's the hack for unlocking amazing NFL tickets and experiences in just a few taps. The zone deals, they stand out. They're awesome. You pick the section, Gametime picks the seats and saves you even more money. And knowing tickets are backed by the Gametime guarantee gives real peace of mind. Take the guesswork out of buying NFL tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app and create an account and use code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app and get back to being there live. I think the other one of when we talk about guys of where the Bears need to improve the most, there's a lot, but the focus is still going to always feel like it's some way, shape, or form. The focus is on Caleb Williams. And Adam, you mentioned it. He talked about in his press conference at the end of the season about improving footwork and accuracy. And that feels like the easiest ones to focus on, right? The short game for Caleb Williams. Like we saw that regress in a way this year. We saw the deep ball get much better. But Adam, like when you watch Caleb this year and you think back to this season, where do you in 2026 specifically want to see him grow the most to really elevate himself into like a top 10 quarterback in the NFL?
Hey, like you said, it's just making those layups. And I do think that part of the issue was having two rookies in Luther Burden and Colson Loveland. We saw some mistakes that they made that cost some of that, and that's Caleb where when he talks about footwork, it's when a guy makes a mistake on a route, not just leaving his feet, where they are and trying to sling it, but being able to, snap around and make a good throw to even on a mistake made by the receiver. But just, those layups are something that have to be done in rhythm of the play call. So, if it calls for a slant and you don't think it's open, but in reality it is, it's just trusting Ben Johnson's offense. And that will also come with more experience in this offense and him and Ben sitting down for another offseason and working together. So I really expect him to do a lot of footwork stuff because we know the arm. He can make the throws. And I think it's just a lot of footwork and being able to set your feet before you throw a majority of the time, whereas he likes to throw kind of off platform like we see a Patrick Mahomes do a lot. If he can grow to get better footwork with, his QB coach is Will Hewlett, who is his personal coach, they are going to grind on that all off season. And I think it will make him a much better on rhythm passer, on time passer, and then in turn make him a much better layup passer and get those and improve that completion percentage that everybody's so worried about. If he gets that, if he's completing 65+%, the sky's the limit for him based off what we saw this year.
Yeah, the important thing there is that it's not like between the ears, right? It's not a decision making that you're like, oh, this offseason, he's got to read coverages better, or he's got to every quarterback could stand to speed up their progressions, but like it's not like he's particularly slow going through his progressions like we used to talk about with Justin Fields. Like it was always this like, well, can you speed it up, or is that just what he's going to be? And that's not the case with Caleb Williams. Like the stuff that he needs to work on feels, I'm never going to say it's easy, but like the most malleable, like the thing that is the most changeable and tweakable. And I think it's easy to overlook that, in the offseason last year, Ben Johnson had him switch left foot forward versus right foot forward. Like it's not like he's been using this exact footwork for 10 years dating back to high school football, right? In college he was doing it differently. In his first year in the NFL he was doing it differently. So like, well, quarterbacking is quarterbacking, and it's not like a brand new thing they're asking him to do entirely. It still is different and something that he was starting a little bit from square one with last season. So it's reasonable to expect that, there's still a lot of room to get better, as opposed to like, well, at this stage in his career, habits are habits. His footwork's locked in, isn't it? Well, no, this is a different type of footwork that he is still sort of trying to lock in and replace the previous years and years of muscle memory of doing it slightly differently. So I'm optimistic that that's something that he can shore up and has room to shore up and is more fixable than other quarterback issues we've seen in the past.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like you think back to Fields, Trubisky, other guys, just like things like it's like there's just he never saw really, I feel like any growth. Honestly, like I hate to be too harsh on those guys, but like, and I know that's in the past, but like I never felt like from year 1 to year 2 we saw significant growth from Mitch or Justin. It always just felt like it was the same quarterback, like maybe incremental, and a lot of times it felt like more they were just going backwards. Like the fact that there was such growth in this one off season, really, with Ben Johnson, it really does feel like the sky is the limit. And the fact that he can do the hardest things on the field, it's like if he can just get just incrementally better at the easy stuff, like just like what can he be? Like, does he have to get to 65% completion percentage? It'd be nice, but if he doesn't get totally there, I think it's fine as long as it just gets a little bit better with some of the easy stuff that we see from him. The other one that stood out for me that from this season is, and I don't know about this, how you fix this one necessarily, guys. Like, I don't know if it's just stickier gloves, the drops this year. just like across the board. Roma Dunze, I think in particular, like he really like the contested catches. I know we talked about a lot on post-game shows, Adam, but that to me is one, Adam, where it feels like just the drops are way too much for the entire Bears offense this season.
Yeah, and it's something that, it just takes those guys to get out there and work with Caleb if they want to meet up somewhere, if it's LA, wherever it is, and just do a lot of work, a couple times this offseason where they get out there and they're just catching it on, and then on their own, if they get a jugs machine or whatever, somebody to throw you the ball, and you just got to work at it. But yeah, the contested catch is the hard part for Rome. And we've got to see. We saw Rome start this season off pretty damn well. I mean, he came out, he was getting touchdowns. Yes, had some problems with drops. The contested catch was still an issue, but I think the injury kind of hurt him, set him back a little bit this year. We'll see what he does coming back, hopefully fully healthy for year 3, and see what kind of difference he makes. I think Luther Burden will also help him in the fact that, they never really got to play together, because early on in the season, we didn't see much Luther. It was more Zacchaeus. And then right when Rome went down, okay, now we need more Burden, and that's when he took off. So I think those two on the field together, healthy, will help each other a lot in terms of the route running and all that stuff. And then we'll see about DJ Moore coming back. I expect Colson Loveland to get better with the drops, and I expect Burden to get better with the drops as they get more comfortable in the offense, more comfortable with the speed of the game. So I think it will be better next year. I want to see Rome with a contested catch get better, get back to what he was in college, because he was a monster in college at it. And he got to the NFL, and I don't know what it is, but he is not that same guy he was in college, and why he was a top 10 pick. So that's a big change that hopefully he can work on this offseason.
Yeah, that feels like something that's hard to work on in the offseason.
It does, yeah.
It concerns me, right? Like you can get out the jugs machine and catch 1,000 passes. You can even have someone stand there and try and kind of rake at your arms while you're trying to catch it. But like you can't replicate in practice
you can't simulate it.
Yeah, the fear of being hit, right? The contact, you can pull and hand fight, but you can't have a safety that's about to lower his shoulder into your back when you're breaking on a post route at the goal line and the pass is a little bit behind you and you drop it. Like you just can't quite replicate that. And like, so some of that is like a mental thing that I wonder, if just an offseason reset kind of just clears the brain a little bit, and then you kind of shake a little bit. They're not quite yips, but in that same category of just like you get in your head a little bit about, oh, I can't drop it. Oh no, I dropped it again, kind of thing. Like if just sort of clearing that out can help. But I think, yeah, some of the other drops like Loveland is a little bit more just like focus of, hey, seeing the ball into your hands every single time and not just assuming, all right, I catch it and turn upfield. Oh no, I didn't actually catch it. Like that kind of stuff, a lot easier to work on, and I think won't be as much of a problem. But some of that like heavy contact, working over the middle of the field stuff, I wonder how much they can actually fix it versus it's just a little bit of like a mental work and getting into the next regular season as confident as you can be that, no, I'm going to catch this and don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, even like Loveland, it's like, he didn't have a drop until the last week of the season, and then they came in bunches there going into the postseason. Like it's just like to be that sure-handed, and then for it to kind of fall apart. Like he's the one I'm not concerned about, thankfully. It's just he seems to just have so much confidence, and also with him, like you mentioned there, Lauren, like getting hit. I mean, how many big hits did we see Colson Loveland take this year and just hold on to the football? Like he's a monster. He's honestly like. That whole rookie class, I cannot wait to see in year 2. Like it's why it sucks the season's over, because like they were so much fun and getting better each week. Like what Burden, Loveland, Monungai are going to look like in year 2 is going to be fascinating, because it feels like all of them are kind of primed to take a pretty substantial jump, even though they were pretty damn good in their first season.
Yeah, you have to feel like just being able to get that full off season of work in the organization, in addition to, not being injured going into the offseason, but also getting to start in January with the offensive scheme instead of arriving after the draft in April, or is it May? But regardless, starting halfway through, here's the playbook. Everyone else has got a little longer than you have. You got to catch up and go on the fly. Like there's so many reasons to point to this guy being the limit, especially for the rookies that are now in year 2.
Yeah, just the offense as a whole, just the how much better they can get the offensive line just all being together. And we'll see when Ozzie Trapillo comes back. I mean, it sounds like that'll be a while, but even if it's, Theo Benedict brought back and he's just working, and we'll see what they do at left tackle, but just that the four, Tooney, Dahlman, Jackson, and Wright, just together for another season, I think will be even better. And they were already one of the best running teams in football. We saw what they did with the pass game late in games. If they can put it together, and we'll see who's back, among like DJ Moore, is DeAndre Swift back, all that kind of stuff. But they have a chance to be a very, very good offense next season.
All right, let's take a look at some of the free agents from the Bears' current roster that are no longer under contract, and who your first reaction is of who you got to keep, who you can let walk, what are the best options for the Bears. We'll get into that next here on the Bears Squad Show. Today's episode of the Bears Squad Show is brought to you by TurboTax. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever just to hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax full service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish, without the stress or guesswork. They handle everything from W-2s to self-employed forms and work to get you every deduction possible. You can upload your documents, go about your day, and get updates right in the TurboTax app. Honestly, I love using TurboTax. 1099 is complicated. That's what we are here. And when the first time I got one of those things, I was lost and was trying to do my taxes by myself. Didn't know what I was doing. So I went to TurboTax and made my life just a lot easier. So I cannot recommend it enough. And for a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file you for last year, just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. All right, so the Bears have quite a few free agents, guys. Like this contract I was surprised when I looked at the first list. It wasn't something that I had, that's why this season felt so different. We're not worried about free agents. We're not worried about the draft. We're worried about football games. It was awesome. So now is the time to start worrying about free agents. And we've talked about it a little bit, but Ryan Poles was asked about both Kevin Byard and Jaquan Brisker in his end of the season press conference. And I don't know, maybe he just chose not to answer the question full, but I don't believe he used the name Brisker in his response. He only talked about Kevin Byard and the impact that he brought to this team. So we can just start there with all the safeties that are available, Lauren. I mean, if you had, obviously the Bears don't have unlimited money, but how would you like to see the Bears handle Brisker, Byard, and that entire group this offseason?
Yeah, I mean, I'm like Adam said earlier, like a year or two of Kevin Byard, I'm fine with. You start to get locked into much more than that. That becomes risky. And it's the kind of thing where you can give him a 3 or 4 year contract, but if you just only guarantee the first and second year, and then he can still feel like he's got 4 years on a deal or whatever, but you're really only locked into it for 1 or 2. Like I'm willing to play around with the money that way, if to kind of give everybody a little bit of what they want. But I'm willing to pay him even a raise, a premium from what he had, just given how well he played this season and how he seems to be a really good fit for what Dennis Allen wants. I'm not expecting them to want to pay up for Jaquan Brisker. I'm guessing he's going to test the open market and get a lot more money than we might expect, and that the Bears are going to be willing to pay, because salary cap space is certainly going to be at a premium this offseason. We've kind of gotten used to like Bears going to free agency with a big wallet full of cash that they can't wait to spend. It's burning a hole in their pocket. And now, I mean, I think technically right now they're over the cap for next year. Like they have to make moves to get under, and not that that's going to like prevent them from doing anything. They'll clearly be able to make some salary cap moves, but more so you got to be prudent. Like it does feel a little bit like in some ways the offseason after 2018, after they traded for Khalil Mack, where it's like, well, you wanted to make some big splashes, but you got to get Clinton Dix on a 1-year deal, right? And he played well in that 1 year he came in, but I think they're going to have to be prudent. I'm not sure they're going to go and say like now the Bears arch nemesis Cam Curl is a free agent for the Rams. I don't know that they're going to be able to give him a big time safety contract, but can they find a veteran that you feel like you could give another 1 year or 2 year deal to that's going to be cheaper, but still give you high quality play? Like I think they're going to have to do a little bit of bargain bin shopping, but like we talked about earlier, it also is a position that you'd think they want to make a priority based on how they talked about it. But I feel like pass rush has to be the bigger priority for now. And if you pair a 1 year veteran safety plus a draft pick, and maybe they even compete for that other safety spot, knowing that you've got you've got Byard to really kind of hold things down on the other end, I feel like that's probably what I expect some combination of.
Yeah, I'm basically right there with Lauren. I think you let Jaquan Brisker walk. And if you do look at safety in the draft in those, second, third round, I know it's still really early, but there are guys that are Jaquan Brisker like in the draft that I think you could get. You'd have 4 years of, at the rookie contract, and they would come in and give you most of what Brisker did, including the kid from Penn State that basically replaced Brisker as a recruit. Came in and he's kind of very similar in Wheatley. I mean, that's the type of guy that I think they could be looking at to bring in. I would keep Byard if you can get him on that one, maybe guarantee a little bit of that second year. If it's like 220, that gives him a little bit of a raise, but also shows that he is going to be 33 right before the regular season starts. So I think that is a spot where you bring Byard back. And if you bring a Jonathan Owens back for special teams and depth, I think that's something you look into because he's not going to be expensive. You can get him on a 1-year deal. Maybe if there's someone that Dennis Allen likes better, is a better fit, then okay, bring him in that stead as well. But I definitely like bringing Byard back over Jaquan Brisker.
I feel like in a way before the playoff game against the Rams, like maybe there was an outside shot. You got Brisker, but a lot of those guys who perform in the playoffs, like the way Brisker did, it really helps their free agency stock because I think we sometimes overcredit NFL teams and they do focus on the big moments. And the way he played in that game, like he's going to get a good contract. I'm as long as he leaves the North, like I'm fine. I don't want to see him hitting Bears players on a regular basis. But Brisker to me is one that I would be shocked it is back. Like it's not just Ryan Pohl's comments. It's what you guys are talking about, the contract, everything, what it's going to be. Byard seems to me like the sure guy that you bring back immediately. Adam, you mentioned this guy earlier, though, as potentially an option, to help with your safety position, but also CJ Gardner-Johnson played really well for you. Is that someone that you're interested in bringing back and finding a role for, even if it's just as the, fourth corner on this roster, or as someone that can potentially help you out at safety in moments as well?
Yeah, because I think he's going to be a 1-year deal. So that's where I like it. And he knows Dennis Allen's defense. Dennis Allen knows him. I think Dennis Allen can control him a little bit. So that's why I like bringing him back, because he can be your third safety and your backup nickel. And you can put him on the field and dime. You could do different things with him. He's so versatile. That's why I like bringing him back. And he does bring some attitude to the defense.
Yeah, for me, it's all about price with him, right? Like if it's another veteran minimum type deal, like sure, bring him back. Like I want the security to feel like I can release him at any time with no financial penalty, and I'm bringing him back for sure. Because he was valuable depth, and he's a heck of a lot better than Nick McLeod and really most of the Bears backup cornerbacks. I think he's almost you could call him like a starting caliber slot cornerback in the NFL, not a top 20, but starting caliber for sure. So I was looking back as we were talking about this. When he was with Dennis Allen in New Orleans, he almost never played safety. I mean, that was early in his career. So, and maybe they just said, hey, we just need him in the slot. But like all of his experience or the vast majority of his experience at safety has come away from Dennis Allen. That doesn't mean Dennis Allen might not look at him and say, oh yeah, you proved to me in Philadelphia, Detroit, that you can play safety. So I will trust you to play safety. But it wasn't something he had experience with CJ with at all in their time together. So that's a real wild card for me, because I could see them saying, hey, let Brisker walk, bring back CJ cheap, put him at safety and draft a guy in the second round and let them compete. Like I wouldn't be totally stunned, but I think the odds are that they view CJ more as a cornerback who maybe in a pinch can play safety, right, injuries. And it's like, we just got to throw somebody back there. We'll throw him there, but I wouldn't necessarily expect it to be like a plan A. Yeah, we're counting on you as a backup / starting safety. I think it's more like, yeah, your slot cornerback insurance, who they really like in those dime packages and can blitz off the edge.
Yeah, and I think the vet minimum thing you said, Lauren, it's 100%. I mean, you can't forget this was his fourth team in 12 months. Like he was traded from the Eagles to the Texans. They cut him after 3 games. And it was because he had an incident with one of his teammates on the sidelines. And he started calling out players' contracts. Ends up in Baltimore on the practice squad. They move on from him, probably just because he wanted to play. Ends up with the Bears, and great player for the Bears, honestly, compared to what you thought you were going to get when they signed him. I mean, none of us liked that signing initially. And it was way better than I ever could have imagined. The next one on defense, I think, is really interesting because it kind of leads into a conversation we'll have down the road about like Tremaine Edmonds and TJ Edwards with the injury, but DeMarco Jackson also a free agent this year. That, guys, to me feels like the way he played, it's kind of a must for me. Like, it's not going to be super expensive, but I really like what we saw from him, and I'm all in on bringing him back next year.
Yeah, I'd be fine making him a starter. Like, just if you move on from Edmonds or Edwards, or maybe both, but that you just kind of say, like, you don't just hand him the starting job and don't bring in any competition, but you feel like if Noah Sewell is, I don't know what the injury timeline is going to be like for him, his recovery, but if he's going to be, I know Ryan Poles talked about, I don't remember if he was in the training camp category or what, but like, you're still going to want some competition and some good depth there if you're going to roll with DeMarco Jackson. But like, if you're looking for a position where you can save a bunch of money and not have a huge drop off, I think DeMarco Jackson did enough for me to say he's a starting caliber linebacker in the NFL. Again, not a top 10, top 15, top 20 even linebacker in the NFL, but somebody who I think can absolutely get the job done. But that's a position I'm going to be curious to see, like how much Dennis Allen really likes TJ Edwards and Tremaine Edmonds, or how much he looks for a different type of leader in the middle of this defense. I did see that his old pal Demario Davis is going to be a free agent this offseason, but I didn't realize he is 37, so maybe not a solution for the Bears.
Yeah, I would bring back DeMarco. I think he came in, played well. He just had speed, and he was able to fly around and hit, and TJ Edwards just doesn't have that. And I was just looking at TJ Edwards' contract. You can't just release him outright without taking a hit, but you can, make him a post June 1 cut and save a little bit of money that way. So you have something to maybe, at least pay DeMarco Jackson with. And then if you do cut Tremaine Edmonds, it's $15 million to your cap. So that's one of the big moves they can make to get some substantial cap space to go bring back a Kevin Byard, to go get, maybe a defensive end pass rusher that you think can help, or, whatever they want to do there. But it's going to be interesting to see who Dennis Allen prefers in his defense, because it never really felt like TJ Edwards fit. And then Tremaine Edmonds just kind of runs around a lot, and he'll make a good play every once in a while. But then there's so many times you're like, what the heck are you doing, man? So I think they will move on from both guys, in my opinion. And DeMarco Jackson will be a starter, and, we'll see where they go linebacker wise. But I would say that that it's a not important position, but I think Dennis Allen, you can plug some guys in that maybe you're like, what are you doing? And that he can make it work based on how he runs his defense.
Yeah, I think like the early returns on Sewell this year, I think it got a lot worse throughout the season. But like the beginning of the season, then what we saw from DeMarco Jackson, I agree with that sentiment, Adam, that you can just not just find guys, but like Dennis Allen can probably identify linebackers that fit his system and can make it work. I definitely do not think Edmonds will be back. You can say $15 million in a year where you don't have a ton of cap space. That guy's gone. Like that one would shock me of all the moves, and maybe that's for more next week of who could be leaving that's not a free agent, but that one would surprise me. Lauren, is there anyone else when you look at the Bears free agency list that you're like, that guy is a must come back or must not talk to when you look at it?
Must not talk to. Yeah, I mean, some of the like Theo Bennett is an exclusive rights free agent. There's Jordan McFadden is a restricted free agent. I'd love to have him brought back for that good offensive line depth. But those are kind of the main guys. I'm just like scanning the list to make sure there's nobody I'm overlooking there. I mean, I would consider bringing back Andrew Billings at a good price, but I'm certainly not putting my eggs in him as like, a key featured piece of the defensive line, but I think he's still a quality contributor there, but someone who, got a raise for having played well and then hasn't played as well. So I wouldn't want to pay him at the same rate necessarily, but someone who I think, build me as much defensive line depth as possible to keep everyone as fresh as possible, but certainly continue to add a lot more on top of that. But no, I think it's a lot of guys that are either replaceable or you bring them back on a 1-year veteran minimum deal. I don't know. I think the only one I throw out as a wild card is Case Keenum. Like, does Caleb Williams need another year of Case Keenum, or has he graduated from not needing the tutor in the room anymore, and now is he good to go? I for a veteran minimum deal, I don't hate it, even to help agents continue to develop.
To be honest with you, maybe it's because of where I live and do radio every day, but rookie year CJ Stroud had Case Keenum, and it's been a disaster since. Case was not with the team last year when he was hurt, and obviously he was been with the Bears this year. And it's Caleb's best year. It's only been 2 years, but like I have this like I kind of like having Case Keenum in the room where it's like maybe if JT Barrett gets an offer somewhere else, if maybe that's just your quarterback coach if he doesn't want to be on the active roster. But Case was one that I had marked down, Lauren, of like, yeah, I think I'd like to see him come back. I like having that veteran in the room for just Caleb Williams, for Ben Johnson, for all of them to be there. So he's a yes if he wants to keep playing.
Let me throw one more name at you guys as a guy just to get your opinion on him. Nashawn Wright. We saw what he did this year. That other side of Jalen Johnson, it's Tyreek Stevenson, obviously. What do we think about that Q or CB2 spot where that Wright played so much because of so many injuries? And he did pick the ball off a lot, but he also got beat a lot. Where do you guys stand on Nashawn Wright coming back, not coming back? Where's Tyreek fit in this situation? Terrell Smith will come back. We'll see what maybe he is. He showed some flashes at least. Where do you stand on Nashawn Wright?
I don't want to pay him a big contract.
Yeah, so I agree with that.
To say no chance you ever bring him back whatsoever, but I suspect teams will be willing to pay for the interceptions he generated this season, and that feels like a little bit of a trap. Not to say that he's going to go back to being bottom of the NFL cornerback who can't stick on a team, but like there's so much bust in addition to the boom, and there's so many coverage mistakes and sometimes missed tackles, and just like he gets beaten a lot to where you can do worse as your starting cornerback, but I would like to aim higher and give me a guy who not going to have as many interceptions for sure, but he's not going to give up nearly as many big plays. And I feel like this was a defense that gave up way too many big plays and too many easy yards, and he was a part of that.
Yeah, I'm right there. I just feel like some NFL team is going to be infatuated by the turnovers, and they're going to give him a contract that his agent might give Ryan Poles and the Bears a chance to match and come back, or even for a slight discount from what that team offers. But there's too much bust. I think you can do better. And I don't know if it's Tyreek Stevenson. Even like it's the end of the season with Tyreek is really strange because I felt like he played well all year. Honestly, it was so much better. But I saw someone point out that there was another Tyreek incident that he went to go celebrate at the end of the game during action and go talk to fans. And Kevin Byard had to like pull him back over and stop him from doing what he did against Washington last season. So like that makes me feel like Tyreek's also a hard no if he didn't learn his lesson, honestly. You might have to move on from him.
Like Nashawn Wright's for sure going to go to whatever team Al Harris is defensive coordinator of. Like that just feels like a match that's good. Like whoever hires Al Harris is also going to then sign Nashawn Wright. And you can write that one in maybe not in ink, but in pencil at least.
Well, speaking of, maybe that means Nashawn Wright's going to be playing cornerback for the Packers, because one of the places that Al Harris is interviewing for, he's got a couple interviews, as do other Bears coordinators as well. We'll hit into that next here on the Bears Squad Show. This episode of the Bears Squad Show is brought to you by Indeed. If you've ever hired someone who looked good on paper but wasn't the right fit, you know how important that is. When you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for, trust Indeed sponsored jobs. Hiring Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs put your post at the top of the page and help you get the right candidates faster. Sponsored jobs boost your post to the people who are the best match for your role and make a real difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posts directly on Indeed are 90% more likely to report a hire than non-sponsored jobs. Spend more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with less stress, less time, and more results using Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners to the show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help give your job the premium placement it deserves at Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL. Just go to Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring. Do it the right way with Indeed. All right, guys. So we know Eric Bieniemy is officially the Chiefs' offensive coordinator. Matt Nagy seems to be left out in the cold. He's interviewing for the Eagles job, and so is Declan Doyle, which isn't a surprise. Al Harris is interviewing for a handful of jobs. So, Lauren, it definitely feels like Bieniemy may not be the only one that ends up leaving the Bears this offseason.
Yeah, I think the Declan Doyle interview is maybe the most significant to me because it required Ben Johnson to give him permission. Right? I know like teams technically like formally ask for all the interviews, but that would be a lateral move of Declan Doyle from Bears offensive coordinator to Eagles offensive coordinator that the Bears have the right to block. And Ben Johnson has said all along, I want to support these guys and I want to help them reach their goals. I think he said in his season-ending press conference, he sees like several future head coaches on his 5-star coaching staff right now. And that wasn't like him having the ego of I've built this great staff, but just that, really proud of those guys and want to support them. But this is really the talking the talk to walk the walk, right? Or walking the walk to match the talk. You know what I mean? That he actually had an opportunity to say no. You can't say no to Al Harris interviewing with the Packers. Can't say no to Eric Bieniemy interviewing with the Chiefs, but you could say no to Declan Doyle getting other offensive coordinator opportunities that might include play calling duties, and he did not. And so that tells you that like he is true to his word there, and he's not going to be scared to let these guys spread their wings and fly a little bit. Now, I would be surprised if Philadelphia is specifically the team that hires Declan Doyle, but the fact that I think other teams are going to see, oh, the Bears granted that one. Well, maybe they'll grant us that. And with so many head coach openings still to be filled, would not surprise me at all if Doyle gets a few more offensive coordinator interviews and maybe gets one of those jobs with one of the new head coaches taking over on a new team.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one. I didn't know, I guess I expected him maybe to get a couple interviews requests, but I just can't see the Eagles hiring him when it's all said and done, just with the way things have gone. I think bringing in somebody that, hasn't called plays, this past season and before to be the guy for Philly with the way the season went for their offense with Jalen Hurts and all the question marks in that organization. So I do think in the end, Declan Doyle will return to the Bears. The guy I look at is Al Harris. I think he's going to, meeting with the Packers, Cowboys, and one other team. Who's that other team?
Washington.
There it is. I think he will get one of those. It seems like his name's been talked about for the last few years, and it's just gradually gotten louder and louder and louder as a defensive coordinator candidate. So it feels like he will make that move, but I don't see Declan Doyle getting that job just yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's Declan Doyle. It is fascinating. Like we see some of these first-time play callers have great success, and then we see some of them really struggle. And like it feels like such a risk. And it's a good point, Lauren. Just like there's still 7 openings that need to get filled in the NFL, and with that, there's more offensive coordinator openings. Like the Titans one seems to be held up in the moment with Brian Daboll. That like, yeah, if he gets the Bills head coaching job, he's obviously not going to be the Titans offensive coordinator, but if he's not the Bills head coach, he's going to be the Titans OC, it seems, with Robert Saleh. So, like, there are a lot of openings, a lot of interesting spots. I think it helps the Bears that, like, there was a Mike McDaniel out there who's now going to be the Chargers OC. So, like, it kind of limits some of yours that a Daboll is an option. Joe Brady could be an option for teams. So, like, that might work out in the Bears' favor. And with Al Harris, I'm with you. Like, it would shock me, especially just the teams that are available. Like he's a Packer, and he came from the Cowboys. So it feels like it just feels like one of those two jobs. It makes a lot of sense for him to land, Lauren.
Well, and just like with the offensive coordinators, right? There's 7 other head coaches that could, and so like the Commanders thing surprised me a little bit with him because Dan Quinn's a defensive coach. Like maybe Dan Quinn would give him defensive play calling duties, but I would think if I'm Al Harris, especially, I know that I'm going to be in high demand, right? I know that I'm a really valuable assistant that I'm not that I'm going to have my pick of defensive coordinator jobs, but I think he feels like, much like Ben Johnson, he can be picky and say, I'm going to wait till I'm really sure this is the right opportunity. I'm not sure. I mean, there's plenty to like about Washington, but I'm not sure that that's the best opportunity. I'm not sure that Dallas is necessarily going to be the best opportunity in terms of if he's looking for some career stability. Like Green Bay, unfortunately, makes the most sense in terms of Matt LaFleur just got locked up with a new contract, and I think they're giving their front office people a new contract. They're working on one of them for them, and like they have a good offense, and they could use a defensive coordinator with playmaking, teaching like him. So that's the one that I fear. But I know like Packers fans all want to see Jim Leonard come over from the Broncos, and like the Green Bay is interviewing a bunch of DBs coaches. So I wouldn't be stunned if Al Harris does some interviewing and maybe doesn't get the Packers job and then doesn't like some of the other opportunities and does choose to come back. But I'm not counting on it happening. But I think he and Declan Doyle are both going to be judicious and not just be in a hurry to grab the first job that somebody offers them.
What are your guys' thoughts on, I think that Lauren, I saw in one of your videos or somewhere, but I saw the whole fire Dennis Allen and promote Al Harris. Like, what do you just like? Do you just chuckle when you see it, or like do you have like some thought to it?
So there were murmurs out of Denver that if Vance Joseph got a head coaching job, that Sean Payton might even want to try and trade for Dennis Allen, or if Ben Johnson would grant Dennis Allen, again, like he's letting these coaches go get what, go try out their opportunities. And if Dennis Allen would just say, hey, like Sean Payton's an old friend, like, you're the new young guy, but he's like grandpa, like he's the OG. I'm going to go be back with my best pal, Dennis Allen, or that best pal, Sean Payton. And then you could promote Al Harris. And sort of like a win-win, right? Like, hey, Ben, I get to go back to my coach that I really want to work with, and you get to keep Al Harris because you can promote him to replace me. So like, I could see that being an outcome that everybody wins a little bit, but I haven't heard Vance Joseph's name connected to nearly as many head coaching jobs as I think people in Denver were expecting him to be. And I suppose there's still time for something to emerge, but it seems less and less likely now. Like, I think that's the only outcome where Dennis Allen leaves the Chicago Bears.
What do you even ask for? A second? Because coaches goes for first. Well, most head coaches.
Well, the Cardinals and Colts guy, Bruce Arians, went for a 6th, and Herm Edwards went for a 3rd. So you're talking a day 3 draft pick for Dennis Allen.
Yeah.
Interesting. I thought maybe because head coaches are going for first-round picks that a coordinator might get you a second-rounder out of it.
Well, not a coordinator that coached the 25th ranked defense in the NFL this past season, right? Like, that doesn't reflect the job Dennis Allen did, but like,
right.
It's there of we're giving up a high draft pick for a coordinator who coached a quote unquote bad defense this season. Like that ain't gonna fly. It's fair. A 5th, 6th, 7th round pick swap kind of thing.
One other thing that I think could really impact the offseason, but with the way it's going and the way it technically sounds, it would hurt the Bears, is Ian Cunningham going to the Falcons. And now with Matt Ryan being there as president of football ops and the top decision maker, technically the move for Ian Cunningham, this is according to some, and some say it's the other way, but if he takes the GM job, technically it's not a promotion for him because he's not the top decision maker. So we've seen it both ways in the past, where is if he got the GM job and Matt Ryan wasn't there, the Bears would get 2 third-round picks, a third-round pick this year, third-round pick next year. But some are saying that if he does get the job with Matt Ryan there and being the top decision maker, that the Bears would get nothing and lose Ian Cunningham, which I think would really suck because Ian Cunningham's really good at what he does. He really helps Ryan Poles in all kinds of strategy when it comes to this roster, and losing him for nothing would really suck, I think.
It seems like a similar situation of that we're talking about with Declan Dole here, where it's like, will Ryan Poles would be happy for him, right? Like, it's not going to be about they're not going to say like, no, you shouldn't go because we really need those 3rd-round picks. Like, as much as from the fan base perspective, for sure, like, you don't want him to go there.
You want it.
Ryan Poles is going to say, hey, if they offer you the job, go take it, man. Like, go spread your wings and fly over there. I just wonder if for Ian Cunningham's perspective, if he's going to want the Atlanta job, if he's not really truly the final decision maker in charge of an organization. Like, I understand still interviewing for it, see if they'll offer it. I mean, you got to consider all options, and it's a good experience interviewing. So I'm not surprised that he at least is hearing them out. But I do wonder if it's not a literal promotion in terms of opportunities and just in title, if that's motivating enough for him to take the job or wait for getting to run his own organization and like getting to pick his own head coach, right? Like, you're coming in, you're just slotting in. Instead of being Ryan Poles' right-hand man, you're Matt Ryan's right-hand man. So how much better of an opportunity is that really for you? New job title, and maybe a higher salary. But I think if it's not more power, then what are you leaving for then?
Yeah, he could almost be coming in and being the third man behind Kevin Stefanski in terms of, decision making. And I'm with you that I think, I almost hope he doesn't take it for himself just because of those reasons, that I think he's good enough that he can run his own team here at some point in the next couple of years. And yeah, will it help the Bears if that's the case? Then they get the 3rd rounds, of course. But for him, that has helped Ryan Poles so much that I think it would be good for him to stay if he's not being offered that top job in an organization.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. Like the fact that, obviously Ryan Poles was at one time blocking for Matt Ryan. So like that relationship is very clear, right? From when they were played together at Boston College. But like, I don't know, man. I don't know if I'm telling my guy to go take a job where you can't call the shots. And like, no offense to the guy you used to block for, but Matt Ryan was on CBS 2 weeks ago. Like, I don't know. Like, he's hired a head coach without a GM. Like, I just don't know if that's the first GM job that I want. Another position where, like, defensive coordinators, once you get fired as a GM, like, sometimes it's hard to get back to the top of that mountain again. So it feels like it could be a one opportunity for a guy like Ian Cunningham. I'm not sure the Falcons job is the one I want right now.
Like, if he takes the Falcons job, isn't he interviewing for GM jobs on other teams a year from now? Like,
yeah,
let's say, whatever, pick a team. The Cardinals GM job becomes available next year. Wouldn't he want to leave for that job? So then what's the point of making the more or less lateral move? Like, it just seems strange.
All right, that will do it for this episode of the Bears Squad Show. We'll be back with you again next week for 2 episodes of this, as we will start to really dive into the offseason, the ramifications of the coordinator hires happening with the Vikings, the Lions, and the Packers, how that affects the Bears. We'll get into all of that next week. But thank you all for watching, for listening. Make sure you hit that subscribe button here on YouTube. Leave us a like, a review on Apple and Spotify. And make sure you check out Lauren Monday through Friday right here on the Locked On Bears YouTube channel and audio channels as well. We'll talk to you next week. Peace.